Coming up today, General Election Day is almost here. Korea's political parties have just over 1 day and a half to try and sway the minds of undecided voters ahead of Wednesday's poll. The South Korean government says a senior North Korean military official defected to the south last year. The revelation follows the mass defection of 13 North Korean restaurant workers last week. Plus, a welcome return as skies over South Korea turn blue again after days of heavy smog. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 11th of April. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our starting point this afternoon is the run-up to the general election, now less than 2 days away, and millions of Koreans will head to the polls on Wednesday for an election that is expected to be one of the most hotly contested in years, particularly in Seoul and its surrounding areas. Our Shin Se-min starts us off.
There are now fewer than 48 hours until polling stations swing open for the 2016 general election. With the clock ticking, the parties are still unsure over which way a number of key battlegrounds will vote. Over half of 122 electoral districts up for grabs in the Seoul metropolitan area and others dotted around the country are too close to call, with polls within the margin of error. Despite this, the parties have revealed how many National Assembly seats they expect to win. The ruling Saenuri Party says it expects to win around 145 seats, falling short of securing a majority in the 300-seat assembly. The main opposition, Minju Party of Korea, said it might end up winning fewer than 100 seats. The minor opposition People's Party predicts it'll grab 35 seats. The leaders of the parties are stepping up their campaigns ahead of Wednesday's vote. Chairman of the ruling Saenuri Party, Kim Moo-sung, will be stumping for his party's candidates in the southeastern cities of Ulsan and Busan, as well as Jeju Island. The Minju Party of Korea's leadership will sweep through tightly contested districts in Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province. It'll also canvass Jeju Island. The co-chair of the minor opposition People's Party, An Chol-soo, will be hitting the streets in Seoul. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, as last-ditch campaigning goes on around the country, the National Election Commission has revealed this year's poll will cost taxpayers more than $280 million. The commission also says some 340,000 extra people have been drafted in to help organize and oversee the election. Around 67 million ballot papers and 320,000 campaign posters have been printed, and those long banners you can see along the side of the road, well, 14,000 of those have been made. This year's general election, set for Wednesday, will have a record number of eligible voters at 42 million. And you can stay tuned to Arirang News over the next few days for all the build-up and then all the results as they happen. So, with under 2 days to go before Election Day, campaigning is almost done, and now it all comes down to the voters. But with so many candidates in the running, it can be tough to narrow down your choices, especially if you don't have a particularly strong affiliation to a certain party. Our political correspondent Park Ji-won has some tips that could help you make up your mind if you're heading to the polls on Wednesday.
Nearly 1,000 candidates are running in this year's election in 253 districts nationwide. With so many candidates to choose from, it may be difficult to judge the qualified from the rest. There are some things to look out for when trying to decide who gets your vote. Experts advise voters to beware of candidates who make unrealistic pledges or just make too many pledges altogether. Candidates who are more focused on slandering their competition than outlining their own policies could also be bad news. Candidates with questionable tax histories and unclear military records may also merit additional consideration. Voters also need to be wary of incumbent lawmakers with poor legislative records. Some of this information is available on the National Election Commission website or in the election package delivered to voters by mail. Voters can also access a detailed accounting of each candidate's campaign expenses online. And those who want to see their district candidates in a debate can go to the National Election Broadcasting Debate Commission website, which is currently offering free access to the debates online. Unlike the nominees for high-ranking positions who have to undergo intensive confirmation hearings to win appointment, the candidates running for parliament don't get nearly the same amount of scrutiny. So the full consideration of each voter is a must, as the elections are the only way to avoid a bad hire. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, the general election is not only a battle to secure seats in the National Assembly for the next 4 years, it's also a litmus test ahead of next year's big one, the presidential election in December 2017. For more on who could be in the running, Ji Myung-gil reports.
The three presidential hopefuls are Kim Moo-sung, head of the ruling Saenuri Party, Moon Jae-in, the former leader of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, and An Chol-soo, who left the Minju Party to create the splinter People's Party. A poll conducted by Real Meter on April 4th to 6th showed Moon Jae-in was in the lead with 20%, followed by An Chol-soo at 14.2% and Kim Moo-sung at 14.1%. Among the three potential candidates for the presidency, two will be running in the April parliamentary race, Kim Moo-sung representing the Chung-ang-yeongdo districts in Busan and An representing Seoul's Nowon-si district. Kim Moo-sung is looking to prove his leadership mettle by guiding his party to a majority of seats and mending the deep factional rift within the party that came to a head last month over the candidate selection process. Moon Jae-in's goal is to help the Minju Party gain victory and secure a strong presence in parliament to solidify his image as a competent presidential candidate. However, Moon said he would abandon his presidential ambitions and his political career if he fails to garner support from the liberal stronghold of Jeollado province. Moon resigned from his post as chairman earlier this year after the Minju Party became embroiled in a high-profile internal feud. For An, his newly launched party must realize his promise of securing 40 seats and also win the Nowon-si district, where he is looking to fend off rivals, especially the Saenuri's political rookie Lee Jun-seok. The three political heavyweights are hitting this year's campaign trail with considerable vigor, as the performance of their parties in the April 13th contest will be crucial to their political ambitions for the future. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, from today, foreign tourists interested in trying their hand at cooking Korean food can do so at a special center in downtown Seoul. Located in the capital's creative culture complex, tourists can taste and experience the culture of hanshik, Korean food, through various ICT interfaces at the so-called K-Style Hub. Tourists can also buy locally made cultural goods at an art market and get all the tourist information that they need. Attending the opening, President Park Geun-hye said everyone should be able to experience and enjoy culture and arts, and that Korea should realize a creative economy by focusing on its own traditional assets. Now, South Korea has confirmed that a North Korean colonel from the North's Reconnaissance Bureau defected to the South last year. Seoul's Defense Ministry spokesman on Monday confirmed a news report that claimed a senior North Korean military official fled to the South in 2015. The South Korean spokesman, however, did not elaborate on the details regarding the military official. North Korea's General Reconnaissance Bureau is a key organization of the North's People's Army and is headed by Kim Young-chol, who is the party secretary handling inter-Korean affairs. The North Korean colonel is the highest-ranking official to ever defect to the South. Seoul's Defense Ministry also revealed that North Korean diplomats have defected to the South before, but did so prior to the latest UN sanctions on Pyongyang following its recent nuclear and long-range missile tests. A group of mostly North Korean women who worked at a restaurant in China defected to South Korea late last week. As more details trickle out about the mass defection, Kim Il-kyun tells us how finding work in a restaurant overseas is considered a great job for North Korean women, but securing a position is far from easy.
More than 20,000 North Korean women are said to reside in China to earn foreign currency. Among the various positions, competition is highest for jobs in overseas North Korean restaurants.
Since the working conditions in overseas restaurants are considered quite good among North Koreans, one has to come from a good family.
Citing sources familiar with North Korea, South Korea-based news network YTN reports that aside from family background, employees should be qualified in terms of education, physical appearance, and be able to sing well. With the intense competition, applicants also tend to get into debt in order to offer bribes to the authorities. However, the employees are known to only receive 10 to 20% of their salaries, since 70% is taken by the regime for miscellaneous causes. But with the latest set of international sanctions imposed on Pyongyang, the salaries of these employees are at risk if the restaurant does not meet its payments requirements to North Korea. It means the recent mass defection of North Korean employees to South Korea and the attempts that could follow could affect the restaurant operators, mostly senior figures among Pyongyang's elite. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
The foreign ministers of the Group of Seven Industrialized Nations, G7, have agreed to work as a united front against North Korea's continued provocations. According to Japan's Kyodo news agency, Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida told reporters after the first G7 session in Hiroshima that the ministers criticized Pyongyang's nuclear and missile threats as well as its human rights abuses and demanded a concrete response from the regime. The Japanese minister also said the group shared opinions regarding China's territorial ambitions in the South China Sea and stressed the importance of maintaining order based on international principles. South Korea's expansionary monetary policy intended to boost economic activity has resulted in the total supply of money in circulation hitting a record high. Hwang Ji-hye has more.
People in Korea are holding on to and using cash more than ever before. Data from the Bank of Korea shows the amount of cash circulating the country has hit a record high. The figure stood at roughly $80 billion as of the end of February, up almost $1 billion from the previous month. The amount hit $60 billion in 2014 and $70 billion early last year. The record amount of paper money and coins in circulation comes as the central bank continues to hold its key rate at a record low of 1.5%. This has resulted in more people holding on their cash, therefore raising demand and prompting the central bank to fire up the printing presses. A central bank official says Korea's aging population has also contributed to the trend as the elderly generation prefers to spend cash. And it's not just the amount of currency in circulation that hit a record high. With the central bank introducing easing measures to prop up the economy, such as expanding its lending program for small and mid-sized firms, the total amount of loans extended by the Bank of Korea also hit a record high. As of the end of February, the amount stood at around $16.5 billion, up around $40 million from the previous month. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Now, staying with financial news, and foreign investors turned into net buyers of Korean stocks last month, ending their 4-month-long selling spree. According to the Financial Supervisory Service, foreigners bought $3.8 billion worth of local stocks in March, the biggest monthly purchase since April of last year. The financial watchdog said investors, particularly from the US and Britain, had increased appetite for riskier assets as the US Federal Reserve seems unlikely to raise rates that sharply, at least this year. Foreign investors' holding of Korean stocks stood at over $375.5 billion last month, accounting for 28.8% of total market capitalization. Samsung Electronics continues to make considerable progress in the semiconductor industry, narrowing the gap on US rival Intel in terms of chip sales. According to data by industry tracker IHS, Samsung accounted for 11.6% of the chip market in 2015, up 0.9 percentage points from the previous year. The Korean tech giant is second after Intel, which took up 14.8% of the market, up 0.7 percentage points on year. The gap between the two was 5.3 percentage points in 2012, but it's gradually narrowed to just 3.3 percentage points as of last year. Korea's SK Hynix accounted for 4.8% of the market last year, beating Qualcomm to place third. Now, if you're watching us in Korea, you can breathe a little easier today. Air quality over much of the country has improved, prompting the Ministry of Environment to lift a fine dust advisory that had been in place for 4 straight days. The smoggy layer of air was pushed away by a high-pressure system making its way toward the Korean peninsula from northeast China. Now, this is great news for those of you wanting to enjoy some of the early spring sunshine. However, people on the East Coast have a 60% chance of seeing some rain today. Perhaps today would be a good day to see the cherry blossoms, in fact, because today's high in Seoul will reach 19 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies. Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday lunchtime here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled news bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.